In 2022, Russia invaded Ukraine. Then in 2023, Hamas and Israel kicked off a major war in Gaza. And in 2024, Venezuela might invade Guyana. Hopefully not, but just in case, here's what we're looking at in South America. So there is some history to this conflict that I'll get into here in a moment, but the most recent round of tension started on December 3rd when Venezuela held an election and voted in favor of the annexation of the Guyana Essequibo region, which is an oil and mineral-rich portion of neighboring Guyana. Now, annexing an area makes it seem like they're just going to take a little chunk of land. It's not. It's 70% of Guyana. Now, the opposition party here claims that 89% of the public abstained from that vote, essentially calling the entire vote into question. Now, it looks like Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro was kind of expecting this result. I mean, he was off and running right away. On December 11th, he announced the creation of the new Venezuelan state of Guyana Essequibo. He also unveiled an updated map that I'll show here of Venezuela that shows Guyana Essequibo and stated that the region's 125,000 residents will now be given full Venezuelan citizenship. Additionally, Maduro gave an ultimatum to a handful of the oil companies working in Guyana under approval from the Guyana government, saying that they had 3 months to exit the area. Then on December 12th, a Venezuelan military contingent was sent to Puerto Barima on the Guyana border. And really since December 3rd, there's been a lot of rumors, haven't seen this confirmed anywhere, a lot of rumors of Venezuelan Special Operations Forces, mostly in civilian clothing, training indigenous forces either in Brazil or Guyana right up along their border with Venezuela. Again, none of that is confirmed from what I've seen, but the speculation would be that these Special Operations Forces are moving in ahead of the main effort to kind of prep the battlefield for the eventual full-scale invasion. All right, so kind of stepping back as to why this is an issue in the first place. The Essequibo dispute is a long-standing issue here, and it's gone on for over 2 centuries since the British colonization of Guyana. Then in March of 2018, the United Nations referred this case to the International Court of Justice, and they were expected to make a ruling early next year in 2024. Now, this Essequibo area, like I mentioned, it's over 70% of the Guyana territory. It's over 61,000 square miles, and it shares borders with Brazil and Venezuela, and again is known for its oil, gold, diamonds, rare earth, uranium, and more. So this isn't just some random chunk of land. It's not about what language the people speak there or don't speak. There's a lot of value in terms of oil and rare earth minerals that, in this case, it looks like Venezuela is trying very hard to get their hands on. Now, one of the arguments as to why Maduro might be pushing this forward right now is to try to distract from the ongoing crisis in Venezuela. Since he took power in 2013, the Venezuelan economy has contracted by more than 75% and has pushed more than 90% of their residents into poverty. Most of this is due to not just economic mismanagement, but also U.S. sanctions levied on the country. So one of the arguments here is that Maduro might be threatening this war and meeting with Russians. He has another meeting set up in Moscow here in the coming weeks as a way to try to pressure Washington and the United States into easing sanctions levied on his country. Of course, you got to think that if Venezuela kicks this war off, they'd be hit with a whole new round of U.S. sanctions, further crippling their economy. So it's not, there's a bit of a balancing act to be had there. Now, stepping back, there is kind of a big picture strategic aspect of this as well, where a Venezuelan war with Guyana might actually be beneficial to Russia. And there's a couple reasons for that. There has been a lot of communication between Maduro of Venezuela and Putin of Russia as tensions continue to mount in this region. But you have to think that if a major war kicks off in South America, it could pull a lot of U.S. attention away from Ukraine. We're already starting to shift our focus from Ukraine much more towards Israel. If there's a war in South America, any amount pulled away from Ukraine is a benefit to Putin. Additionally, a war in South America between Brazil and Guyana has the potential to reduce oil flows, which could be a benefit to Russia, whose own oil exports are subject to pretty significant sanctions right now. But real quick, a thank you to the sponsor of today's video, Shields. Now, hopefully, you all got in the woods more than I did this year, which the bar was set pretty low. It was like 3 or 4 times total. I'd plan on going like 3 times a week and just didn't. No excuse. I spent more time watching the deer and turkeys run around in fields across the street than I did actually going out and hunting. But for all you men and women who are better than I at actually getting out there and enjoying nature, Shields is your one-stop shop for all things sporting goods and outdoors. They've got 30 locations across the United States, carry a wide range of premium brands, and offer price match guarantee. Look, Christmas is almost here. Stop procrastinating. Get that Christmas shopping done. Check out Shields in the description below, and thank you to Shields for sponsoring this video. Then in terms of overall reactions to what's happened so far, of course, Guyana's president announced on December 9th that he opposes the annexation. No shock there, right? Just got to put that in there. And he said he turned this decision over to the International Court of Justice, trying to get this matter heard before Venezuela makes their own decision using military force. On December 7th, the White House expressed support for Guyana's sovereignty and warned against violence and conflict in the region. U.S. Southern Command, we're used to hearing Central Command a lot in the Middle East. U.S. Southern Command operates in South America. They've been conducting flight operations inside of Guyana with the Guyana Defense Forces. And then Brazil's actually a really, really important player in how this conflict plays out. And Brazilian President Lula recently called to avoid unilateral measures that could escalate the situation and offered diplomatic mediation. That was on December 9th. And then the Brazilian army, I'll pull up a map here so you can kind of see some of these areas, reinforced its presence in the northern cities at Venezuela's border. And the Brazilian defense minister made it clear that in no circumstances will Brazil allow Venezuelan troops to enter its territory in an attempt to invade Guyana, which on the surface, I got it. Like, of course, why would you allow another country into yours to invade a third country? The map's going to be important here. So Brazilian law actually allows the president to authorize the entry of foreign troops from a country not yet at war without the approval of their national Congress, which, going back to what I said a second ago, makes Lula, Brazilian President Lula, one of the most important decision makers in this conflict. So Brazilian route BR-401 is the only viable overland passage to Guyana for Venezuelan troops. The Venezuelan border with Essequibo is a pretty dense forest, like really thick, no major significant roads. So any sizable military force have a really hard time navigating that. You're talking about, platoon-size elements on foot at times, not anywhere near what you would need for an actual invading force moving into an opposing country. Additionally, Brazil has around 12 military bases and 2,000 soldiers near that northern portion, again, between Venezuela and the Essequibo region of Guyana. And just recently, Brazil announced that they sent 16 armored vehicles to the northern portion of their country to kind of de-escalate the situation, if you will. However, those vehicles are going to take about a month to get there. So, Venezuelan President Maduro, if he's going to make a move, is probably going to want to do that before Brazil is able to reinforce the area that those Venezuelan troops would have to move through. All right, and then shifting into the military considerations, if this kicks off, the 461-mile Venezuelan-Guyana border region is just full of thick Amazon rainforest, rugged mountains, winding rivers, nasty, nasty terrain. So it's steep and irregular. There's not very many open roads to move any sizable equipment through. Very hard to actually see through the jungle. Easy to hide personnel if you can get equipment in there. Easy to hide the equipment. And there's not really a good way to go around that. The shoreline that the two countries share is incredibly marshy and will make any sort of amphibious operation nearly impossible. So to bring Brazil back into the mix here, to talk about just how important they are in all of this, unlike Venezuela, Brazil is connected to Guyana by a highway that could facilitate massive troop movements in a very short period of time, including tanks and armored vehicles. Now, in terms of what Guyana has with their military capabilities, it's not a lot. Realistically, Guyana is not going to have any chance of repelling the Venezuelan military without some sort of foreign assistance. As it sits right now, Venezuela has an estimated 123,000 regular soldiers in uniform. Guyana's defense forces, you're looking at 3,500, most of whom are just regular police officers. So there's four big things to keep an eye on here that'll determine how this whole conflict plays out. First, I'd say Maduro's interactions with Putin, if Russia decides to push for peace or push for an escalation of violence. The U.S. involvement, whether that means additional sanctions, the easing of sanctions, or some sort of military assistance to Guyana. You've got Brazilian President Lula. Does his stance change on allowing Venezuelan troops to move through Brazil territory into Guyana, or does he hold firm and make them find another route not easy route into Guyana through the rainforest. And then finally, the International Court of Justice. Are they going to do anything? Are they going to step up and make a decision before the estimated timeline of next year, recognizing that tensions continue to mount? But that's all I've got for now. Thank you to Maria Zappello for putting together the research for this video. You can find more of Maria's work at the link in the description below. But thanks for watching. I'll see y'all next time.